Hello and welcome everyone. This we had run into each other with Scott last week and decided that it could be an interesting conversation that we have with each other here, and so decided to give it a go and see where it takes us. I'm Dan Ackers and I write The Adaptive Human, a publication where I try to notice hidden patterns in our ordinary lives to give language to things that people don't necessarily notice otherwise or haven't noticed yet. And with me, I have Scott Perry. Scott can introduce himself.
Hey, yeah, so my publication is Creative on Purpose, and what I am trying to help people with is to stop abandoning themselves anytime life happens to not cooperate, and so that they can make the difference that they want to make in the way only they can make it, and maybe make a decent living while they're doing it. So it's all about making a difference and making a living at the same time.
All right. Now that's definitely tying into what I've write about a lot or have written about since um, I launched my own company about in 2017, and I stepped down from the CEO position in 2019 because I didn't feel like the role was aligned with what I want to do. And obviously, I mean I am still employed by the same company, but I'm not really, my heart's not in it, even though I do the work for a paycheck. But
Well, I think, one of the things that I often caution people about is, we at, at any given stage in life, we may find ourselves having to do the work that we have to do to take care
mm,
of our responsibilities, but that doesn't preclude our ability to spend some time on doing the work that we get to do. And I know that I've been very, very lucky in that when I have transitioned, I transitioned from teaching into other things, and then from other things into being a full-time freelancer as a professional musician, I always was provided a little bit of a runway so that the job that I was working, allowed me to take care of my family and all of my financial responsibilities while I got something else off the ground. And I don't think that there's any shame in that, and I think it's also there are folks that still come up to me and say, "Hey, I would love to be a full-time musician the way that you were. How do I go about doing that?" And I tell them, "Don't. Like, it's a really hard way to make a living, and you will spend 80% of your time doing things that you have nothing to do with becoming a better musician or playing music or any of that." So, I think there's room for consideration before you leap into anything, and I would certainly advise against burning the boats and going all in, and because that kind of urgency, uh, generally, in my experience, ends badly.
yeah, I mean, obviously I do think our paths or our journey is like one long journey that we walk upon, and burning bridges can easily, backfire in many ways and everything we've done in the past can always support you in the future. And some of my biggest cheerleaders have been people I've been working or worked with before. And I know that also that if I do get in, or if I do get into the future business or whatever I decide to do, that I always have people helping or cheering me on from the behind that know me from before.
Yeah. Well,
So
fundamentally, I think our responsibility is to be a good human being in pursuit of becoming a better human being. And you can do that wherever you are with whoever happens to be around. You don't have to, that's the great danger, is that we're planning and engineering and trying to get to this destination, thinking that once we get there, somehow all the planets will align and everything will be so perfect that we'll just be, doing nothing but work that we love with people that we care about. It's the process, and the process is the shortcut. There is no final destination. I have learned plenty from all the straight gigs I've had over time. And they've all helped inform and inspire a better way of doing my own thing out loud and in public.
I must say that, you know, having that rainbow to follow, seeing you see the rainbow at the end of the road, and just going there, and then imagining that you get there, and yeah, and you'll find the gold. It's a beautiful metaphor, but reality gets in the way.
Yeah. Well, if you've reached some sort of finish line and you feel like it's all done, I don't know that you are in a race that was really worth competing in. When I
Or
have,
maybe you finished one race and then you're ready, and then it's time to find the next race to get into.
well, that's precisely what I was going to say.
Okay,
Every
yeah.
finish line I've ever crossed has been a thinly disguised starting line for the
Mm,
next thing, and sometimes those things have been related, and sometimes those things have seemed like a complete change in direction. But like you were saying, if you look at the arc of the whole thing, it is all about one thing, and that is, fulfilling your potential to do something that matters and to make some sort of difference. Because
yeah.
ultimately, if we're going to be remembered for anything, it's going to be for the difference that we made while we had life and had a chance to make a difference.
Mm. Something you have had written a lot about, which also describes my experience with my company, is that, when success looks right but feels hollow, like, how do you describe this kind of this feeling? Because I obviously know my version of it, but I'm curious to hear yours.
So how do I
How do you know that,
how
or
do
how do you realize that that's the going?
gotcha? Yeah, I actually I just had an interview with my friend Karen Salmonson in her publication, Some Things Worth Sharing, where I talked about this exact
Mm,
process and delivered the best tool that I've been able to come up with, which I call the Zest Barometer. Uh,
okay.
you know, if you are if you find yourself persistently feeling depleted day to day, doing whatever it is that you do, you're one of two things is probably happening. You're either doing the wrong thing or you're doing the thing wrong. What's interesting is how many times we just, without any reflection or review of the data, we just decide we're doing the wrong thing and we quit and we start something else. What we forget is starting a new thing is the most resource intensive endeavor you can be in. It takes
Mm,
a lot of time, attention, money, and effort to get something new off the ground. It takes far less time, attention, money, and effort to refine the thing that you're doing so that it becomes more like the right thing. And so when I am checking in with myself, the first step is you have to just be aware uh, of what's going on.
mm,
If I'm finding myself feeling persistently frustrated uh, or depleted, if my work is not energizing and exciting me, then the first step is to take a long look in the mirror and decide, like, am I playing a game that's worth playing? Am I playing my game, or am I trying to win someone else's game by someone else's rules?
yeah.
And a lot of times I'm playing a game that's worth playing. I'm just playing it by somebody else's rules or trying to follow someone else's playbook. This is the thing that, I see my friend Bree and Claire are here. They're members of the Creative on Purpose community. And we talk about
Yeah.
this all the time. Like, if you're going to play a game worth playing, and if you're going to win that game, the only way to do it is to play that game on your terms without compromise. And if you don't know who you are and what your non-negotiables are and what it is that you want your life to look like, you can't possibly win it. So
Mm,
The Zest barometer is just a way of checking in. And 90% of the time, 80% of the time, I would say it's not that you're doing the wrong thing. Life has a funny way of getting us somewhere close to the path that we're supposed to be on. It's that you're doing the thing wrong. And that means that, if you want things to turn out differently tomorrow, you're going to have to see, be, and do things differently than you did them yesterday.
Um, that brings me to I'm getting curious, like, because you're describing it as if you have like lived experience about this exact thing. So, how could you describe your experience of when you noticed this yourself?
Plenty of times. I mean, my very first job out of college was teaching at a really famous school that would have been a dream job for 99% of the people that are pursuing a career in teaching. But after 2 years at one school, moving to another school and having the same experience of this work is not lighting me up. This is not what I thought I was signing up for. I made a strategic move to build a bridge that allowed me to leave teaching and go into becoming a full-time musician. Um, that was a direct result of checking in with my Zest barometer. I was a professional musician for over 25 years, but 10 years into it, I had a family and I didn't want to be on the road 200 days of the year.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a full participant in my family's life. So I started off by trying to open up a music store that met with some success, but not enough to justify the time and effort it took. And so but during that time, I also was giving guitar lessons on the side and discovered that was something I was really good at, that I really enjoyed doing. And I turned that into more or less, the way that I made a living. And I was able to work 20 hours a week and make a very comfortable living teaching people how to play the guitar and how to express themselves and connect through music. And I thought it was going to be the thing I did for the rest of my life. And at another point, further along, I felt a calling to do something else. I wanted to write. I wanted to help other people identify and realize their potential. And so I built another bridge, and and that was all came from those moments of checking in, checking the Zest barometer, and try and figuring out, am I doing the wrong thing or doing the thing wrong? And once I made a reasoned decision, figuring out a way to make that transition. And it sounds like you did something very similar, Dan. Like I imagine that there's a lot of people where you live that would have said, "Oh, CEO at IKEA, that must be a pretty sweet gig." And for some people it would be, and for you it
Yeah.
wasn't. So how did you go about making that transition?
Um, well, I mean, it was a company I launched, or the story of the company starts back in 2016 when I ran a summer project where I taught youths how to program, and after that summer project, I got so much good feedback out of it and there was the country manager for a big IT company in Finland, came and said to me directly that, hey, I should definitely make a company out of this, So it was such a strong urging that I felt like I was forced into it almost. So obviously after that I gathered a team, and then we managed to get this through IT training first. Like, we taught people how to program. We started off there, and then after about a year and a half running it. Oh, and also should remember that I was a student back around this time as well. So I had full-time studies and then trying to get this thing up and running on the side. So I was quite busy at the time. But then about a year and a half into it, it started feeling like, I mean, I know how to do this, and I know what being a CEO means. We had 15 people employed at that time, I think. We had also transitioned from being purely an IT training company into also doing IT consultancy, and it didn't feel like I was doing the work I wanted to do when I was a CEO, and it felt like our company would need a more sales-oriented CEO. I mean, I knew how to sell. I can sell. I don't have, but I don't enjoy doing that 24/7 in that sense. Like I wanted to have more of a technical role, I suppose. And eventually, then after doing a lot of soul searching, figuring out like, should I still stick around with this as a CEO? I mean, I could probably learn and become comfortable with the role as well, or should I step back and let someone else be the CEO? And eventually, I chose to take the step back and let someone else be the CEO because I felt strongly that someone else could do a better job than me. And I mean, now obviously 6, 7 years after that decision, I know that it was a good decision for sure because my colleague who took over the CEO position, he did a really good job and we made an exit of the company. So I can definitely not say that it was a bad decision.
Yeah.
But considering from me being aligned to what I was doing, or from that perspective, I can it cannot say for sure if this was the right decision. I mean, if I had stayed stuck around as the CEO, it might have been a more true role for me personally, because I could have done more than just being the developer. I didn't realize at the time that I guess I want something more than just working on a single project at a time. But then stepping back from that role didn't really allow me to have these bigger responsibilities too, I think. So again, it's a bit of a guessing us my way forward, but I do still stand like I can guess that maybe if I had stuck around as a CEO, it could have been a role I would have been grown to enjoy, but it also could have been made me even more miserable, and I can't know for sure. And
Well,
then
that's it.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, and then now that when I was going on with this role as the developer, I mean, I still am a software developer, and you could say that I might be better than average based on the feedback I keep getting from it, but it's not a role I particularly enjoy anymore. Yes, I do it because it pays my bills, but I have I spent like a couple of years being quite miserable and taking on doing just the bare minimum at work, and then I noticed I was bringing that bare minimum back home as well, and I wasn't
Mhm.
really participating as much at home as I should have. And that's basically where I eventually realized that yes, I need to find something to bring that spark in my life again, and whatever. And after lots of thinking again, I feel there was a lot of roles I considered but discarded because I didn't feel like they would fit whatever it was, or it wouldn't take me into the direction I wanted to go. And then last autumn, I heard about Substack for the first time, and it just felt like this might be a direction I want to walk in. So I'm giving it a go.
Well, you're pointing to, I think, two really important things.
All right.
One is the fact that decisions are not outcomes, and the other is the identity trap. We think that if we try hard enough and spend enough time and grind on it long enough that somehow there's this perfect decision that will help make everything
Mm,
clear and easy, and it's simply not true. You can make a really good decision and get a really bad outcome, and you can make a really bad outcome and get a really good result and think that you made a good decision. But if you keep making bad decisions, at some point the odds will catch you. And
yeah.
the name of the game, I think, with the decisions, especially big life decisions about where you're heading and what you're doing, is to make sure that the upside is as high as possible and that the risk is as low as possible, which is why I've made transitions the way I've made them, with holding on to something that was more or less a sure thing in terms of generating revenue until I got the other revenue stream fully functioning and
Mm,
what we call across the barbell. But the other thing is, to the identity trap is it's a real thing. If you're playing a role that just doesn't feel like the skin you want to walk around in, it's not success, even if the world, looks at you and sees someone that is living the dream. I mean, that was my experience as a teacher.
mm.
lots and everyone told me when I decided to leave teaching that I was out of my mind.
Mm,
And, you know, 25 years later, when I was transitioning away from music and into the, world of writing and coaching, those same people told me I was an idiot for transitioning out of being a musician and a guitar teacher. Um,
yeah.
but I was not going to let other people's definition of who I was decide who I was going to become. So kudos to you for navigating those two things really deftly and well, because I think a lot of people stick with something because they are clinging to an identity that has more to do with how other people see them than how they feel about themselves. And
Mm,
people, often make uh, associate decisions with outcomes, and that either gets them stuck or helps them rush into things that don't end well.
mm. Now, you'd also something I read in one of your posts. I can't remember which one it was, but you talked about like philosophies that actually change behaviors, and how we actually, like what is it that actually moves the needle in terms of that we actually change the behavior? Because, like you pointed out here, we have this habit as humans that we cling to identities, we cling to habits, we cling to a lot of different things in our lives. So what kind of things do you feel like are actually move the needle in this particular case?
The only way that you can get different outcomes is if you start to see and do things differently. If you wake up today and do exactly what you did yesterday and are unhappy with the results because you want something different, you're delusional, because what got you where you are won't get you where you want to be. And
Mm,
for folks that are aspirational and seek to advance themselves, and the integrity and the intention and the impact of their work, the only path that I have found that works is to become the thing by doing the thing. And
mm,
so, again, you have to have awareness that you're either dull, distracted, or delusional, that you're dull if you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, but want something different. You're distracted if you want things to be different, but you spend your time on things that have no relationship or impact on what you're trying to accomplish. And you're delusional if you think that you can follow someone else's playbook or just will your way into a new way of being. If you're going to overcome the sins of dull, distracted, and delusional, you're going to have to start adopting the virtues of receptivity, restraint, and responsibility. You're going to have
mm,
to be open to the idea that if you're going to get where you want to be, you're going to have to stop doing things the way that you're doing them. You're going to have to have restraint when it comes to repeating bad habits or sticking with bad habits or making rash bad decisions. And you're going to have to take responsibility for your own life. You're going to have to take responsibility for how you see things and what you decide and do next. And you're going to have to
mm,
take responsibility for the fact that just because you make just because you frame things as they really are and you make decisions based on the things that have the most upside and the least amount of risk, doesn't mean that you get what you want. Life has a funny way of tossing in time and randomness, that sometimes we make the best decision in the world and we get a lousy outcome, and then sometimes we make the right decisions and get a great outcome. So it's
yeah.
the ultimately, that responsibility comes down to controlling the things that are within your control. You control how you see things and you control what you decide to do next. That's all you get. And if you do that with intention and integrity every day, even if you don't get what you want, the impact is that you become a better person. And, from the perspective of Stoic philosophy, that then you already possess everything you need to live a good life, because they say that the only thing that matters is the quality of your character, the expression of who you are through the things that you do and the things that you say.
You see, you bring up a lot of these Stoic philosophies and stuff. That are they something you find yourself circling a lot?
I was introduced to Marcus Aurelius's Meditations in the seventh grade.
Mm,
I've been in conversation with Marcus ever since, and the things that I had learned from that book, and then later, when I did learn that he was writing about what he learned from Epictetus and the other Stoics,
mm,
and learn more about Stoic philosophy, it has definitely informed and inspired the way that I show up and the way that I think about things and the way that I do things. I have a book coming out in just a couple weeks that shares everything that I've not everything, but it shares the most important lessons and practices and principles that I've learned from Stoic philosophy, because
all right.
more than any other, it's an operating system that has been time tested and scientifically vetted. There's a reason why it inspires positive psychology and CBT and REBT therapies, and there's a reason why these books remain important and referenced, 2,000 plus years later.
Mm.
So, I think my publication is all about, big ideas, because big ideas inform and inspire work that has intention, integrity, and impact. What about you, Dan? Are there touchstones or books or philosophical or spiritual traditions that you lean on to help
Um,
you navigate life and work?
I wouldn't necessarily say none of those. Like I do like many of these philosophy books that or ideas that the one that I often keep referencing because that's the one that touched me the most back when I was younger, called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Mhm.
You probably know that one. And feeling like how much importance there is in living in the present and doing the best you can with what you got, etc. You mentioned, or you had this life is a funny way of, I can't remember the exact words you had, but what I usually keep telling is that life has a funny way of working out, or in some way and usually not the way that you expect, because
Mhm.
trusting that you do the right thing for yourself, then usually it does lead to some good outcome for you, regardless, even if you can't see the outcome along the way. And that, you can fail 20 times along the way, and then suddenly you get one lucky break, and or even not necessarily even lucky, but it takes those 20 failures before you get to the right one, and you don't even know along the way that, hey, those are the 20 mistakes you need to make first. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I say trust that God has a plan for you. I wouldn't say that, but still trusting that life still has a funny way of working out, and then try being present and doing the best you can with what you got. Those, I would say, sum up pretty well. Then obviously another thing is that I like to talk or say is that, what has affected, or one of the major turning points back in my life was, I had been, how should I sum up this longer story into a bit shorter? When I was growing up, my parents got divorced, and that affected me really greatly. I started narrowing down and withdrawing a lot more than perhaps people should. And then after about 7 years of that or something, I just kept withdrawing more and more. I eventually hit a breaking point, and I didn't know what to do instead, but I knew that something had to change. And the divorce obviously was still big in the back of my mind. And once I hit the breaking point, I had a friend of mine had suggested I should talk to a social, or his dad, who's a social worker, who's got lots of experience in dealing with divorced families and stuff. And basically, I still remember that conversation being like, I told him about my situation, perhaps in like 30 seconds or something, and after that he had like a 20-minute monologue of how it usually goes in families like mine, and that was just made me my jaw drop to the floor, and Like it's that common, and because it was probably like 99% spot on about what had happened in our situation. And I think the most valuable information I gained out of that conversation was the ability to lift myself up and look at my own situation from the third perspective and help me analyze situations in a way that, and also analyze my emotions in a way that didn't require me to experience them, the emotions at the same time.
Mm.
And that's a moment I like to, because I recognized that after that, that like how I had been treated or how it had gone throughout my while I was growing up. The moment of recognition is such a powerful moment, I think that, and it's also one that I'm trying to carry forward it through the adaptive human, that we or I want to try it if I can. I'm still learning. I'm not sure how well I'm doing it yet, but I'm trying to create my essays in a way that there is a moment of recognition somewhere for people in there, and hopefully I could create that same. You could. It might be exaggeration to say that it's a magical moment, but it's still a moment, a beautiful moment, I think, that I would like to try and offer for people.
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's precisely what the new book is about. Uh,
Mm,
emotions are real and they are not inherently good or bad. They are just naturally occurring uh, reactions to the stimuli that happens in our lives. Euphoria, fear, anger, frustration, like these are just naturally occurring. The Stokes would call them impressions, but the problem is not that emotions happen. The problem is if we if we cling to the emotion and or react before we've had a chance to sit in that pause between stimulus and response, because we do have in most cases a moment where we can try to see things as they really are, as opposed to the narrative that gets, that hijacks our mind because of just the chemical reactions that are going on, and we have the opportunity to frame and make a more reasoned response that will promote our health and happiness and help us maintain our sense of purpose, prosperity, and peace of mind. But the other thing that you're touching on that I think is so important is it's so impossible, and if not impossible, extremely hard to do this by yourself. You receive it. Sometimes somebody else has to hold up the mirror for us
mm,
in order for us to see how we are complicit in our own suffering and furthering our own pain, and in our uh, complicit in making, telling ourselves false narratives and making bad decisions based on them.
mm,
And, you know, we kind of started off the conversation about this. Like the first thing that you have to know, the first thing is you have to wake up. You have to become aware of what's actually happening.
mm,
And because if you don't wake up and become aware of what's happening, you have no chance of acknowledging what's happening. You have no chance of framing a better way and taking a better way forward. So other people help us do that. That's one of the most important thing in my work is the thing that makes me the least amount of money, and that's the community of people that gather every Monday and Friday to talk about these things. And despite the fact that we're all doing we're all engaged in different endeavors, and we all come from different backgrounds and different experiences and different belief systems. But we're all on this path of improving ourselves and making things better by doing work that matters with people we care about. And we're talking about these things that most people would say, oh, that's just, that's just pie in the sky philosophy and principles, give me some strategy, give me some tactics, give me some tools. The answer is almost never more tools, tactics, and strategy. That's usually going to get you further away from what you want, because in most cases, if you actually turn whatever you're trying to solve into a solvable problem instead of an irresolvable situation, then it just takes one or two things to go right enough for you to start to close that gap. And it's not going to have anything to do with buying a new software or taking another course or reading another book or joining another mastermind or any of the things that we usually leap to. Those are just, they feel good because we like more. We love to collect things. We love to add more to our plate. It makes us feel good, it makes us feel productive. But actually, in most cases, if you are clear about what you're actually trying to accomplish and where you are and what you're starting with, the first thing that's going to get you closer is stop doing 80% of the stuff you're doing that's actually not helping you get any closer to what you want. And you are automatically going to get there easier and faster. And then you can improve the one or two things that are necessary. And that's how you're going to close the gap.
Those masterminds or courses that you were referencing there, I like to think of them that they're usually a shortcut to, your mind believes that they're a shortcut to whatever it is that you actually want. And therefore they're really attractive because you feel like you can skip all the boring work and just jumpstart your way to the goal instead of actually doing the work. And well, and that's what the courses sell. Whereas, well, in reality, what they do is they sell that, even though the reality is that you're still forced to do the work. They just took some money off of you along the way. Or that might be a little bit making it more extreme than what actually is. But point is that our minds like shortcuts.
Well, you have to remember that when you buy somebody else's system or course or collection of tools, tactics, and strategy, you're buying a program or a blueprint or a roadmap that worked for somebody else in the past. And the problem is you are not them, and it is no longer the past, which is why but we buy them mostly because we're in so much pain that we need, like you said, we need that silver bullet. And so it's not that I don't think most people that sell digital tools, tactics, and strategy are bad people. They honestly believe this worked for me, it'll work for other people. But they don't understand that what worked for you in the past doesn't necessarily transfer to everybody else in the present. And so one of the things I try really hard to do is to share the philosophy and principles that are universally true for everyone who has ever done anything meaningful ever, which is why things like Stoic philosophy and the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao Te Ching and all the things that I reference are touchstones, because they've been around forever and they've been proven to work over and over and over again. It doesn't mean that they're absolutes or that they can't be disproven at some point, but so far track record is really good. And if we build strategies and adopt tactics and tools based on knowing what we really want and what we know to be true when it comes to achieving things that are worth achieving, you have a much better chance of accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
That brings up or reminds me that when I was about a couple of months ago, when I was considering like what should I write about like that could help people, and I was actually based on what I had been written so far, that people really thought that I could write some kind of guides or models about how to do this recognition part or how to get to the next step. And the more I thought about it, the more I ran into the exact same like reason that you just described, that even though I found them working for me, I don't think, or whatever model I would write about, I think it wouldn't be one that would be universally true, because everyone has their own experiences and their own lives. And something I do like to instead try and believe, or something I believe in, that most of us already know what the next step is naturally, but we just for some reason or other choose to try be busy or try to find external sources for the truth instead of doing the work and thinking, looking inwards to find those steps. I understand that it's difficult because in our day and age, there's social media, there's a lot of other different distractions around that will take up so much of your time that it can be very difficult to find the moments and or the moments and what time you need to actually look inwards to learn about yourself. But that's kind of where I believe at least that most of us at least are able to find that answer within yourself. And also the Stoics philosophy, like I believe it's time tested and proven to work in many cases, but that unfortunately that it works always would require that pretty much every person, that it would work for every person. Therefore, to complicate a little bit what you're saying, I believe it works for most people. I'm not going to deny that, but I still would have a shadow of a doubt there might be people around that who doesn't really resonate with them. And therefore, I also think that, to a little bit go back to another point you made earlier about, or I'm not sure if you actually brought this up directly. Anyway, when we want to have a fulfilled life and work towards something we want, that doesn't always have to be something that we earn, that earns our paycheck. Like, yes, every one of us, we need some kind of income in today's world, unfortunately. Like, we can't just do whatever and expect the government or some other faction to pay, unless you're lucky enough to actually find a patron to do that with. But that's a different thing. Point is that we all need some kind of a way that to express ourselves, and to gain that, whatever that is that you want to out of life. For some people that can be just simply gardening, or it can be building wood house, or it can be just that you want to make the perfect summer cottage for yourself, or it can be getting better at throwing darts. Like, I mean, or heck, someone even might say that all they want to do is get better at drinking beer. And I'm like, well, sure, if you want that, you still need some way to find a paycheck. But still, if they want to have that, the paycheck just to support whatever it is that your actual dream is, that's completely fine. And it shouldn't be required for everyone that they need to get their income from their dream, because some dreams are really difficult to monetize, and it shouldn't. And also some dreams doesn't even want to be monetized. So it's a little bit complicating here things, but
well, just on the point of, is there any tradition that has all the answers? The answer is no. I mean, it has more to do with, again, those fundamental philosophical ideas and principles. Like, you referenced Eckhart Tolle, who I think is brilliant, and he talks about presence and non-attachment and surrender and integrity. And yeah, he talks about the same things as Stoics talked about. He talks about the same things that are talked about in the Bhagavad Gita. He talks about the same things that are in the Tao Te Ching. He talks about things that are associated with, Christianity and the Muslim faith and the Jewish. I mean, we have to remember that these things persist. These things like presence and surrender and letting go of things that are not yours to begin with, and the pursuit of purpose and prosperity and peace of mind. There's many ways to get there. And the traditions that have persisted have all found truths that are worth investigating, exploring, and maybe adopting. But it's not about aligning yourself and adopting the flag and waving it at the head of your parade. It's, the fundamental truths are the fundamental truths because they have yet to be disproven. And if you find them through Stoic philosophy or Buddhist spirituality, uh, I don't think it, I think it matters less what we call it. Again, identity trap. For a lot of, a lot of folk, one of the reasons I wrote the book that I wrote about Stoic philosophy is because a lot of people associate Stoic philosophy now with, what a lot of us call broicism. Like it's become a life hack operating system. And that's not, it was never was that and never intended to be that. Um, who the hell wants to become a hack?
Mm.
Uh, but so I think what you have to find your way to the life that you feel is worth living, and to do that, doing the work that you think is worth doing, and to associating your people with the people that enhance your lives while you bring value and love to them as
Yeah.
well. And there is no one way. That's why, again, you have to be able to figure out who you are and what game you want to play, and then you have to figure out how to play it on your terms, and you have to figure out how to do it with increasingly less compromise. um, and ultimately the process is the shortcut. Is that a cat or is that a child?
That's a cat who decided to come and yell next to me now for some reason.
uh, okay.
At least he left now. That was a weird. He doesn't usually come here and yell at me.
I had a cat that got very jealous every time I got on Zoom and would howl outside the door, and it sounded very much like it could have been something else, and it was always a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
Dan, it's been
Anyways,
really delightful to spend this time with you. I need to start to wrap up because I have a call
oh,
at the top of the hour.
oh, cool. Then at least a short. Well, I was gonna agree with you. Quickly there that we, as humans, we have this wonderful ability that we can pick and choose out of different philosophies or different ideas on how we want to live. So we don't really need to. Even if we say we follow the Stoic philosophies, that doesn't mean we need to follow all of them. We can just choose whatever parts of it that we find fits us. Why do I look like I'm about to burst out laughing? Well, I mean, I like to think of myself as a very positive person and or optimistic person, and laughing is fine, something I find very easy. But it's also something I've noticed that it's a way for me to deal with my own stress and my own insecurities, in that sense that I might laugh it off something that I'm uncertain about myself.
I think it's supposed to be fun.
Well,
So
that too, at least.
it's called the
um,
game of life. It's not called the work of life.
yeah. Oh well. I did have a few other things I was actually thinking about bringing up, but if you have to wrap it up, we can definitely wrap it up and leave it to some other time if we get the chance to do this again.
Yeah, I would be happy to talk. Uh,
Yeah.
talk again anytime. I mean, these are these opportunities to talk about the things that matter to me and refine my thinking and change my mind is the, part of the highlights of my day.
I am learning the same because I haven't done many lives yet, and I'm trying to learn how to do this. And I've noticed as well that you, for example, you sound way more experienced with lives and way more experienced in expressing the ideas that you're writing about, whereas I feel myself like I'm just learning how to express myself in a more natural way, or even express my ideas in a coherent way sometimes, which
Oh, you're doing great. I probably am twice your age, and I've been doing this for a very long time. I probably should be a lot further along than I am.
well, that's another identity trap, I guess, thinking that I should be
That's
further along than I am right now. But anyways, hey, it's been delightful. I've enjoyed this a lot, and thank you for
likewise.
joining us, or joining me here, Scott. And let's see if we can get ourselves some chance to do it again at some time.
I'd love
Um,
it.
yeah, thanks to everyone who tuned in. Do you have any closing words you want to say, Scott?
Uh, I guess just to maintain the theme, you can't win a game you don't want to play. So, if you don't do anything else today, give a little thought. Give it a little thought to what really matters to you and where you actually want to be, and then figure out uh, where you are and what you're starting with, so that you can define the gap that you can close, and don't get dull, distracted, or delusional about things. This is your one wild and precious life, to quote Mary Oliver. You might as well, either make the most of it or enjoy it to your fullest capacity.
And along the way, make sure you bring your guitar and play your favorite song, so you actually enjoy every step of the way to get there.
There you go. Music does make things better, for sure.
Some people say that, and I can agree to some extent, at least. Now, anyways, next live when, I don't know yet. We'll see what we come up with Scott at some point.
That sounds
Thank you to
good.
everyone who tuned in, and I'll see you guys next time, or at some point. Have a
Appreciate
nice
you,
day.
Jen. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Bye.